Please be seated. I want all those that are young at heart, especially the children, to come up at this time. Just loud. All those that are young at heart. Oh, I didn't mean to make everybody cry. Okay, I'm sorry. Who's crying? Who's crying? Scarlett, here. Come here. Come here. Give Scarlett the bell. Scarlett, there's the bell for you. You can have the bell. Okay. Wow. So that was it's hard. The bell scared you. Scarlett, I quit the bell. Look here, Scarlett. Come here, Scarlett. You want a shirt? Hey, how many are in kindergarten? How many are in first grade? Second grade? Okay, third? Some of y'all are in school, some of you aren't. Is that right? Okay. Okay, you're homeschooled. That's right. And when you go to school, what do? You learn something, right? You learn something. Sometimes you have to wear shirts. You have to wear different shirts for different programs. Okay, we have shirts for you today. Where's my shirt people? She said she was coming. Here he comes. Here's the shirt people. We got. Sometimes we have special events or play games or like football, basketball, that, and you get a uniform, right? This is your shirt. We're giving you shirts today. Everybody gets a shirt. Look, they all got the church symbol on there, St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, 25th anniversary. All right, everybody gets one. Come up here and let Mr. Jason give you one, okay? Okay, if they're in the wrong size, we'll make it work right for you. Okay, see this bell, Scarlett? This was my mother's bell. She was a school teacher, and every day for school she'd ring this bell because she wanted to get the children's attention. I got your attention, didn't I? Just I didn't made you cry, but I don't want you to cry, so we're going to put it away now. The bell is for another day. Right? Oh, somebody stole my stamp from the first service. It's not good. Okay, we'll figure that out. People steal anything, won't they? Oh, somebody got it. Okay, that's good. Okay, good. All right, here's the deal. When you go to school, when you're early on in school, you read children's books, right? You ever have read any fairy tales? Any fairy tales? Any fairy tales? What's your favorite fairy tale? Give me one. How about Cinderella? You like Cinderella? Everybody like Cinderella? Have y'all heard Cinderella? Story of Cinderella? Alan, you heard it. Remember Cinderella Carter? She was a beautiful young lady, but she was abused by her stepmother, wasn't she? Y'all remember that? Stepmother abused her and made her do all the hard chores. And then fairy godmother, right? Fairy godmother comes to her and she turns her into this beautiful princess for one night, right? You remember that? And she made this beautiful carriage out of a pumpkin. And she told her, if you go, you got to get out of there by midnight, or the pumpkin will turn, or the carriage will turn right back into a pumpkin, right? Is that the story? Am I getting it right? Now, in the end, she gets the prince, doesn't she? Isn't that right? Then what happened at the end? She gets the prince. Is that right, David? Do you remember that story? And that's a good story, isn't it? Make you happy when you read it? Makes you feel good. When I was a kid, I used to be scared a lot because of the rules. You know, I never could quite do things the way that the teachers wanted me to do. And really, that happens enough, and you get punished enough, you get to be, what? The lights are in your eyes, aren't they? They didn't turn the spotlights off, did they? Turn the spotlights off, Ernie. My goodness. So if your world presses in on you enough, what happens is what happened to this woman in the story today. Jesus is in the synagogue Scarlett, listen, Jesus is in the synagogue, and this woman comes in and she's bowed over like this. She can barely walk. And if you worry about everything and you don't be young at heart, you'll end up like this in old age, right? I don't ever want to get there, do you? This one more time I'm going to be with y'all and do a children's sermon. You realize that? One more time. Not next Sunday, but the next Sunday after that. And then I'm going to go away for a while. I know that's a good thing, but I know that there's one thing. I'm going to miss all of you because you're special to me, right? And when I was growing up, there was a guy that made me realize there was hope and made me feel good and safe. And I would watch him on TV, and I loved him. His name was Jimmy Durante. And he sang this song, and I want you to know this. This is for you. I'm singing this for you. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. For it's hard, you will find, to be narrow of mind if you're young at heart. You can go to extremes with impossible schemes. You can laugh when your dreams fall apart at the seams. And life is more exciting with each passing day. And love is either in your heart or on its way. Don't you know that it's worth every treasure on earth to be young at heart? For as rich as you are, it's much better by far to be young at heart. And if you should survive to 105, look at all you derive just by being alive. And now here is the best part. You have a head start if you are among the very young at heart. I want you to all stay young at heart. That's the key to being alive and happy. So come on, I will give you a key. I think I got the stamp. Somebody said they brought it back. Oh, look at that. It's a miracle. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you. You want another one, Scarlett? If you're young at heart. Do you believe that, Carter? Yeah, that's true. Here you go, Brendan. The key, it's a little key. Look here, William. Look at that little key. Bingo. Okay. You want one, Nora? You want another one? You want one, Nora? Here we go, little girl. There you go. It's a little key. Father, make us the masters of ourselves that we might become the masters, the servants of others. Take our minds and think with them. Take our lips and speak through them. And take our hearts and set them on fire through Christ our Lord. Amen. Good morning. Good to see all of you here this morning. This is my last real sermon among you. 2 weeks, I'm going to come in here and do a dialogue sermon. So I want you all to write down questions or something you want me to talk about. Okay, just write down anything. It could be a word, and we're going to have a sermon. We're going to see what God does among us. Okay, will you remember to do that? So let's do that. So this is my last sermon, and I want it to be special for you. I want you to understand the essence of me, right? When I was a young boy, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I had my ears operated on. They used to be out to here. You'll see my kids. You'll recognize that was probably what my ears looked like. I had my nose operated on because I had bad problems with sinuses. I had my eyes operated on. I was cross-eyed. I still am. You just can't tell it because they fixed it cosmetically. I had a tonsillectomy, and I got a blood clot right here. Had to go back to the hospital. Emergency ambulance took me, and I had nephritis when I was a kid. So I spent a lot of time in bed and afraid. And one of the things that helped me through those moments was my mother, of course, teaching me how to pray. I've talked to you about this before, but it was the radio show, the Lone Ranger, the Shadow, all those people that I used to listen to, and then we got TV. We got one of those little round TVs. Y'all remember the round screens? And some of us are old enough to remember. They're real fuzzy. You only got 3 or 4 channels. You had to use the horizontal and the vertical to get them up. And there were some special people on the TV that would come to me in the evening. One of them was Red Buttons. I remember I loved Red Buttons. But the one I loved the most was Jimmy Durante. And Jimmy Durante used to sing this song. It was one of his signature songs. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you. And I believed that. I believed that fairy tales could come true. And that I could enter into that. But one of the things that happened early on in my schooling was I realized that I had difficulty staying between the lines. I couldn't color between the lines. I couldn't follow directions. I once got an F in playground for running the bases backwards and throwing dirt on my head. My mother was amazed. How do you give a boy an F in playground? And then the next semester, I got an F in conduct. So the teacher corrected their error of their ways. And so it was hard. It was hard for me to realize that fairy tales could come true. Because I thought, I'm never going to get this right. I'm going to mess up. And in this story today, I mean, as I prepared for this sermon, I thought, Lord, what are you going to speak to all these people through me, hopefully, this Sunday? And I kept hearing these words, fairy tales can come true. So I looked it up, got the words, and practiced it. Hope I got a reasonable representation. And I started thinking about all of you, and I thought about when I first came here, I was given questions, and someone said, send us a sermon, a good sermon. And so I wrote back, I said, well, I don't think I've ever preached a good sermon. And then I told him, I said, because Peter, he preached one day and 5,000 people were slain in the Spirit right there, right? And that's never happened to me. I said, when that happens, I know it's a good sermon. It's not going to happen today because look, all these empty pews. I mean, it's my last sermon. Where are they? If they wanted to hear it, it's And so I sent what was representative of me. I said, this is what I usually do. And there was one person, and I can tell you the story now. It's not classified anymore. I've used my private server to get it. But when the search committee met and decided on me, there was one person, she was very influential, and she saw me get down on the ground with the kids. I got down on my knees and was with them. I mean, it may have been a sermon where I got down on my back. I don't know. Whatever happens, it's beyond me. But the woman said, I don't want a priest that gets down on his knees with the kids. Now, that's wrong, Amen. Some of you people have, I notice when I say young at heart, rarely does any adults come up here. Every now and then, some of you do. That's great. There are people among us that are really bright and smart. I mean, I know that. That's one of the reasons I love this place. I mean, people are really smart, they're educated. But sometimes we'll see these acolytes over here. Look at Colin. Colin, stand up, sit up straight now. Sit up straight. Now, quit fiddling with your rope there. They fiddle with their ropes. It's mainly these kids over here, although some of them over there, they get rowdy too. And they do things that are just not right. I mean, y'all wiggle. You make faces. Make a face to me, Colin. No face? Okay. They're kids. They're kids. And we're missing an opportunity if we take that moment and we look at them and then we go find somebody like our acolyte director over here and say, you got to do something about it. Those kids have got to go, right? This is what you do. You come over here. This is every one of you. Pay attention here. Young man, what is your name? Colin, you look like an angel when you're up here. And I just love watching you act like, but sometimes you get a little fidgety. You do this with your thing. Probably something you could work on, but you still look like an angel up here. And if you ever need me, you call me. Okay? Now, that's the way you treat kids. We don't criticize them. They're just kids. And if I criticized you every Sunday, you wouldn't come to church anymore, right? But yet that happened in the church of my youth. That happened a lot. And I had to remember this song. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. I love that song. My love for Jimmy Durante was beyond my imagination because I never met him, you know. And my daddy loved Jimmy Durante too. My daddy, my father was rarely happy, rarely. I have one picture with him with a smile on his face, and I keep that picture and I cherish it greatly. Before my daddy died, he was like this. And the way the world had just pressed on him all the time. But when he got in the shower, he sang. And he sang songs like this song that I just sang. And I learned them, and I decided I wanted to sing. So I got in the boys' chorus, the Warblers Club. I've told you about it many times. And it's more than a singing group. It was a fraternity. And I almost didn't get in because one of the older kids wanted to blackball me because I didn't look like, I was kind of a nerdy, redheaded, skinny. And somebody else said, well, we let you in too, so don't forget that. And this woman, this story that we get for the gospel today, I didn't pick it out. The lectionary people did. Whoever made the book in the order that they did picked it out, but yet it came to us for this Sunday. Isn't that amazing? This woman is all bowed over. Now, we don't know why. We don't know who she is. She doesn't have a name. There's no conversation between her and Jesus until Jesus sees her. So she doesn't have any special credits that she's built up, no Groupons or anything like that she can show to Jesus. He just sees her, and he heals her right there on the spot, right? And she comes alive. She stands upright for the first time in 18 years. And what does the rabbi do? He starts complaining, griping. Say, don't come around here on the Sabbath day. You got 6 days to do that. You don't get healed on the Sabbath. And Jesus is looking at him like, she just did. It's like somebody wanted to have a conversation with me about infant baptism. I don't believe in infant baptism. I always say, well, I know, I believe in it because I've seen it, And this woman is healed. And Jesus looks at her, he says, you hypocrites. You'd take your own donkey out and feed it, or your dog or whatever on the Sabbath, wouldn't you? I mean, you would, wouldn't you? And we all go, yeah. And listen, I want to tell you this morning, when I went over here, I tripped. I hit this, and I do that all the time. And I told them this morning I did it on purpose, but I didn't really. And none of us is without sin. You know that, don't you? We all, every one of us. I mean, it's kind of absurd, really. I want you to look in the mirror when you go home. Just look in the mirror. I mean, I look at you every Sunday. We're kind of absurd, really. There's nothing perfect about us, right? And I'm really got lots of imperfections. If y'all ever see the top of my head, I got scars everywhere from running into things. You probably run into things a lot, don't you, Roy? Yeah. And we're not perfect, none of us. But let me tell you, our God loves us. No matter how much we screw up, how much we criticize others or get in the way of the grace that God wants to pour out on us in abundance, God loves us, even in those moments, especially in those moments, because we are beloved children of God, that He, God Almighty, sent His Son to live and die for us. And that's something that stayed with me from that little child to right now. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Do you believe that? Because you've loved me. You've loved me for these 16 years. And we've had some disagreements. Some things hadn't gone exactly like we had jihad. I taught one of our guys a jihad earlier. Y'all know that. If you don't, look it up. And yet you've loved me, and I love you back. And it's these relationships which are important. And if you'll come on the 10th, there are going to be people here from all throughout my life that I know I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for them. But the real reason I'm here today is because of Jesus Christ. When I was growing up, I had lots of heroes: Peter Pan, the Lone Ranger, Red Buttons, and Jimmy Durante. And whenever I would see Jimmy Durante at the end of the show, if some of you are old enough to remember this, y'all might remember this, he would walk out on the stage and he'd get into a spotlight, and the spotlight would be about like this, right? Then he'd walk a little further, and there'd be a smaller spotlight, right? Do you remember? Y'all remember this? Anybody? Can I see some nodding? Good. And then he'd go, and there'd be another spotlight, right? And there'd be the fourth spotlight. And he'd get right there, right there. And he'd take his hat off. He always had a hat on. He'd doff his hat, and he'd say, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." And the story goes that Jimmy Durante, he grew up a poor kid. His parents were immigrants. Daddy was a cut hair in New York City. He quit school in the 7th grade. My daddy didn't finish high school, but the world doubled him over. But Jimmy Durante, he had a plan. He was going to stay young at heart, and so he started playing piano at all the piano bars he could in New York City. And he became real famous and eventually got himself on the radio and TV, but he didn't lose that common touch, that touch for the common man. And the story goes that he was traveling with his group, and he was in Calabash, North Carolina, and he went to a little dive to have a meal. And the woman that owned the place was very kind to him and his group, didn't know that they were going to become famous someday, and they were just kind and generous. And when Jimmy Durante left, he told the woman, "I'm going to make you famous someday." But he couldn't remember her name, and so he dubbed her Mrs. Calabash. And every night, he would end his show with, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." Well, later, he told the truth. It wasn't her as much as it was his wife. His first wife died when she was 50, and something like that. And they used to live in Calabasas, California, and so he liked Calabash better. So it was a tribute to his wife who had died. And he said, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are," because the relationships that he built along the way made him who he was, and he knew that. When I would listen to these people on the radio or the TV, I always felt this message. This message would come to me: don't be afraid. There are people that around here that haven't been in church because they say they're mad at me, because I'm leaving. I mean, you know the old story about cutting your nose off to spite your face. There was a couple that were here, a young couple, get married, and they're not here today, so I can tell that too. I said, "I hope y'all gonna make this church your home," and so, but you're leaving, Nobody has ever made us feel so welcome, whatever. And I said, you're missing something. There's a lot of good people here, a lot of really good people that love each other. And they would love to have you be a part of their group. And that's what you need to cling to, because that's the only thing we got. It's the love that brings us together. The love that continues even after we're gone. And the message that Jesus says over and over again is, help is on the way. Help is on the way. When Jesus comes into the room, things change. We don't have to worry about wars or who gets elected president or governor or mayor or any of that. Because if we keep the love of Jesus firmly in our focus, no matter what happens, we come back to that. We remember that we are baptized. Jimmy Durante used to sing this other song, and I got this song one time when my uncle died. My Uncle Harrison was more like a father to me than my own father. He wasn't bowed over. He was young at heart until the day he died. He got remarried when he was in his late 70s. Had 8 years with my aunt who died this year at 101. And when he died, he left some things specifically for me. She said, "He left these for you." One of them was a ring that was made, it was a silver ring made out of coins. She said, "I don't know. He never told me what this ring was about." And I knew something about that ring. He wanted me to have it. It was important. And then he gave me a string of money. He had all this money that he had taped together from all these places he'd been throughout his military career. It was about this long. I've showed it children's sermon before. And I knew he wanted me to have it. He was trying to teach me something, right? And then he had one tape, a tape of the music for the movie Sleepless in Seattle, right? Remember that movie, Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks? I mean, great movie, chick flick, love story. So I kind of put it together. I started thinking about this. I didn't tell this in the first service, but I figured out that ring. My aunt told me, he did tell me he's had that ring for a long time. They carried it when he went overseas. My uncle didn't get married to his first wife until he was 40-something and didn't have any kids of his own. I was his kid. That ring was symbolic of some romances along the way. I knew it. And then that money, that string of money, he knew my father worshiped money. He knew my father could never enjoy life because he spent so much time worried about money. My uncle would talk to him about it all the time. My uncle was the oldest. And that money was all foreign currency. Some of it was Civil War money, right, from the South, Confederate money. Some of it was Thailand or something where you have $1 million, you've got a penny or two, And he was teaching me something. This money's not worth anything. It's only symbolic what you can do with it, how you can gladden people's lives with it. And then there was that tape, and I listened to every one of those songs, and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't think, what is he trying to teach me? Why did he love me so much? He was the only Episcopalian in my whole family. And he had a son that was an Episcopal priest, even though I was his nephew. And there was one song on that tape. Jimmy Durante used to sing this song too. It's so important, and I changed the words. You'll recognize it. It's so important to make Jesus happy. Make just one Lord happy. Make just one heart to heart. You sing to one smile that cheers you. One face that lights when it nears you. One Lord, you're everything. To fame, if you win it, comes and goes in a minute. Where's the real stuff in life to cling to? Love is the answer. Jesus, to love is the answer. Once you've found him, build your world around him. Make Jesus happy. Make just one Jesus happy, and you will be happy too. That's your job. That's your job. Your job is to bless others with what you've been given. We've all been forgiven. And our job is to go out and bless the world. And we look at each person who walks in this door as Jesus Christ coming to visit with us. And we embrace them with the kind of love that Jesus would embrace us with. When I got into the Warblers Club, I was 14 years old. I was scared to death. There were big boys and there were strong boys, and they didn't want me at first. And it was just one more rejection that I felt. But they loved me, and especially Uncle Joe, the choir leader. He loved me like nobody else. He was a big old guy, chest like this, and he was only this tall, arms like this. I became a weightlifter just because of him. And every year we would have a minstrel show. Every year. That's what hooked me, wanted me to become a warbler. But as things would happen in 1963, when I started high school, the schools were integrated, and we had to do away with the minstrel shows. It wasn't politically correct anymore. And Uncle Joe worked on it, and there were a lot of people that worked in the kitchen, and they worked as janitors, and they were dark-skinned, black, African Americans. And they loved Uncle Joe because he loved them. He made a special effort to go speak to them every day. He'd give them things that he had. He'd think of their children and tell them, hey, I heard your children playing football. Can I give you my old football shoes? They're still in great shape, or whatever, something like that. Can I teach them how to lift weights? Uncle Joe was like that. So these people came to Uncle Joe and said, Joe, you got to bring this show back. So my freshman year, we didn't have one. My sophomore year, we did. And what we had was, we called it a hobo show. Couldn't have the whiteface anymore because it was politically incorrect. You know, y'all may not remember whiteface, but that show was a great show. We gathered together. We meet again tonight, boys, with mirth and song. I don't remember it all. We had an opening chorus, and the show went on. And then sometime there were always in men. And the in men would be the ones that would be dressed in whiteface. And one of them walked out, and he had put whiteface on. In the shadows, back in the shadows, on either side, Uncle Joey invited all the janitors, all the people that worked in the kitchen. They were in the shadows because it was standing room only. Every time we had a show, we had standing room only, and they were in the back. They didn't have seats. And they were standing there, and they were watching. When this young man came on, they started to applaud. You could see them. It's okay. It's okay to fudge a little bit sometimes. We don't have to be perfect. It's okay to break the rules occasionally. You can tell the bishop that. What's he going to do? Fire me? You know. It's okay. Be creative. Let your creative juices go. Remember, fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. I love being in the Warblers, and at the end of every show, this is what we were singing. I didn't write this one down. I'm going to try to give it to you from memory. There is an ending to everything, and now it's time to say goodbye. There's a meaning to the songs we sing as the merry moments fly. I want to thank you for your applause. You made us glad that we gave our show. Goodbye. So long. We're sorry we are through, but it's time to go. Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are. And remember, never give up. And help is on the way. Those with ears to hear, let them hear.